Here is Illustrator. We're going to start by covering a few basic tools for this digital drawing program. First, you want to know that the menu bar across the top you'll be using it frequently. Most importantly, to start a new file, it's under File. You can also open existing documents. This is where you'll come to save if you're not using keyboard shortcuts. Note to the right, all these little shortcuts are things that will be very helpful when saving, closing, opening files, and they're a big time saver once you become more efficient in Illustrator. There are several other options that we'll cover as we go along. Windows, the most commonly used. Any panels that you use or palettes that you use while you're working in Illustrator, you can always find under Window, and they are alphabetically in order, so if you need a color panel, it'll pop up here, or any of the others that we'll cover as we're talking. View is also important. I would say those are the three you use the most, and I'll explain how you use them in a moment. First, we're going to open a new document, File New, or Command N on a Mac. It's Control N on a PC. Your codes will say that for you PC users in class. It gives you options in a new document. You can name it. I can say my first document or name it whatever. File 1 is what I'm going to name this. Right now it's under a custom profile, but you'll notice that it has default profiles. For example, if I choose print, automatically it's going to show me the size of my document. It's going to be letter, which is the most common size used. Also legal and tabloid, which is 11 by 17, and some other commonly used sizes. If I were to choose web, it would give me some common formats for web design layouts. So that's another one used often. You also have devices where you could pick, if you were laying out something for an iPad Air, iPad Mini, iPhone, whatever the layout is appropriate. The one good thing about these profiles is they update with each upgrade to the software, so they'll always be updated. If the new iPad Air is smaller or bigger, these will change with the next updated software. So keep that in mind. So it's really, especially if you don't remember a size, it's a good go-to place. Right now we're just going to choose print because I just need a letter size document. But if you'll notice, a letter size document is 8.5 by 11 by inches, not points. Right now my unit's points, which is not what we're going to be using. We're going to change that to inches, and now notice it says 8.5 by 11. The orientation is portrait or vertical. I could change it to horizontal if I wish, but I'm going to leave it and just open a new document. So this is my 8.5 by 11 document. So we have a page to draw on, yay. So we're going to start with a few basic things. I'm very organized and I love rulers. So the most commonly thing that I think I need when I use this program, I'm going to go under View to Rulers and say Show Rulers. Notice to the right it's Command R on a Mac, Control R on a PC. If you notice now, rulers are across the top and left-hand side of the page. And if you click and drag from the ruler onto the page, you will notice it'll bring a guide. It's just an invisible line that'll help you line up items on your page. I dragged it down from the top to get a horizontal ruler guide and dragged from the left over to get a ruler guide. These are very helpful when you're aligning things and you want a margin or any type of layout help. You can also go back to ruler guides to hide the rulers. Sorry, here are the guides. Hide the guides right here, or clear the guides if you want them just gone. They automatically are locked. I have that checked. I can deselect that if I want to move my guides around just by clicking and moving them around. So just know under View is where those options are. I'm going to leave the guides I brought down just so you know that they're there and it's a visual reminder. The shape tools are where we're going to start because they're one of the most commonly used tools. And I'm going to click and hold down my mouse and I'm going to pull across to a tearaway tab right here on the right and let go, and notice it gives me a tearaway shape palette, which is very, very convenient. I want to say that I'm working in Adobe Illustrator Creative Cloud 2014, but I will show you some of the differences. If you are drawing a rectangle, which is what I have selected, I'm going to click and drag out. Notice it's telling me the size of the rectangle to the right as I draw. But for right now, I'm not worried about the size. I'm going to just let go. And I will show you that it made a white filled, black outlined rectangle. If you notice on your toolbar over here on the left, this is known as fill. This is known as stroke or outline. If you want to change the fill color, you can easily just double click on the white, change it to a color and hit OK. Or click on the stroke, it moves it to the foreground, and change that as well. So I'm going to leave it purple with a black stroke just to show you that you can add color that way. Another way to change the color of the fill is to select it in the color panel or palette. You can just use the eyedropper tool is what this is called, and it color samples from wherever you select. If you notice, you can do it anywhere on the page with the eyedropper tool in the toolbar as well. Sometimes people use color samples from photos to get their color palettes from, so this is a really good tool to have. So on that note, if you're in CS6, this would be as far as you go with the rectangle tool. You can still resize by moving left to right, up and down. You can also resize the corners. If you're in Creative Cloud, there is a new feature where you can adjust the corners. So I will show you this option. So if you upgrade or if you're on Creative Cloud, you can see what happens here. So if I pull in from that corner, you'll notice it rounds all the edges of the rectangle, turning it into a rounded rectangle. They're automatically linked through the transform palette, which automatically opened as soon as I started altering it. If they were not linked, I would use the direct selection tool. Just select one corner and change that one corner so it would work individually. Let's say I wanted one angle to be more rounded, the other ones to not. So Command Z means undo, or Control Z if you're on a PC. So I'm going to go back just to select this one thing and show you where this would be appropriate. If you wanted one side of the rectangle rounded, you could draw a box with the direct selection tool just to select that one side, and notice that one side would be rounded instead of the other. So that's a very neat feature that they added with Creative Cloud. Keep in mind CS6, this is not available, so just know I'll show you how to get rounded rectangles in 1 minute. So I'm going to delete that. You can put the delete key on the keyboard. The next tool is the rounded rectangle tool. So when you click and drag with this, notice it has rounded rectangles. If you move the arrows to the right or left, it will alter your rounded corner or your radius of your corner angle. So just know arrows left and right affect that. So you can see how well that works. So I'm going to undo that one just to show you. The ellipse tool, you can draw circles or ellipses or ovals as they're better known. Just know to get a perfect circle, you're going to want to hold shift. This constrains proportions. You have to hold shift all the way until you let go of the mouse. That's what I've done. If you don't hold shift, you can make any size ellipse or oval that you wish. But shift will keep it constrained to a circle. I'm going to delete those one more time and go back to the rectangle tool. If you hold shift while you draw the rectangle tool, guess what it constrains to? A square. So that is a very good feature to have. Polygon tool you'll probably use less, but there are some cool tricks with the polygon tool. Right now I have a 6-sided shape. If I use my arrows down, will give me less sides. These are great for triangles. If I hold shift, it will constrain it, so it's either pointed up. So it isn't just all over the place, which when you're drawing this as a 3-sided, you'll see it's kind of tricky to keep there. If you hold shift, it'll constrain it. So you can let go. If you use the up arrow, it will keep giving you more sides and more sides, so you can make very interesting shapes. I'm going to let go of that shape and delete it. The star is pretty fun. If you hold shift, it will keep it stationary so it's easier to maneuver. Also, the arrow keys down make less pointed star. It can also make a triangle, or you can get very intricate stars by using the up arrow, and it'll keep adding points to that shape. So those are the main tools we're going to learn on the tool palette. This is the flare tool. I would say it's used a lot less than the other tools, and it's supposed to resemble a sun flare in vector format. But like I said, this is just the introduction, and since it's not used as much, I'm going to skip around it a little bit. Next tool up is the type tool. I'm going to just click once and start typing. I am your teacher. You can write any sentence, it doesn't matter. Do you like that I threw that space in there? I'm the worst typer. I'm going to actually copy and paste that a few more times just to show you. If you just click and start writing, your lines can keep going on and on and on, okay, with the text tool. I'm going to actually press down to get the tear off menu again because I'm going to go over some of the tools under the type tool. So if you just click and start typing, just know it will keep going and keep going. It will not constrain inside the page. It'll just keep writing. But there are some tricks now that you've learned the shape tool and we're learning about the type tool. You can use them together. So if I draw a rectangle and I want to use type inside that rectangle, I can click on it with the type tool and I'm pasting my text in there. So if you notice, the type will constrain inside those boundaries of the rectangle. But remember, when you do this, the rectangle actually is now a frame. There's no fill to it anymore. It becomes just a container for text. You can make it wider without stretching your font or your text. You can make it more narrow so it fits in a column. So it's really convenient to do this. You'll use it often. I started doing it all the time, even if you write the whole page size. So I'm going to delete that. The next tool we're going to cover is an area type tool, and I'm going to just draw another shape and show you it works the same way. If you don't draw the shape the other way, that's one way to do it. Text on a path is the next tool. So I'm actually going to draw a line and put a stroke on it. Let's make it a little longer than that so it'll be a little more interesting. I'm going to click and drag and make that line longer. Then I'm going to click on the line with the text on a path tool, and I'm going to paste what I copied earlier. So you notice it'll go on your line, which is real convenient. What if you wanted text on a curvy line or something along those lines? I said line. The next tool is the vertical type tool. If you click that, you can see your text becomes vertical. I will honestly say I don't usually write like this. This is not a common found way to design, but just know that option is there. The next option is vertical area type tool. So if you had a rectangle drawn, just like with the area type tool, you could click on it with this tool and it will write inside the shape vertical. So the next is vertical on a path, so it would do this vertical on a curved path or something along those lines. Those are the main text tools we're going to talk about. The touch type tool is a little more advanced, so we'll get to that later on in the semester. And if I'm not mistaken, it's new with Creative Cloud, so you don't have to stress about it if you're still on CS6. So now we've covered the shape tool and the text tool. The line tool also has a tear up menu. You will use it a little less because the tool I'm going to teach you after this is a little easier to use and more commonly used, known as the pen tool and pencil tool. So we're going to cover those as well. Let me just go ahead and get all these tear off menus out of the way. So I'm going to close the shape tool. Since we've used that, I'm going to close the text tool. So now we're going to learn about the line tool. Line tool, you click and drag, and you'll notice that Right now there's no fill and no stroke, so a common novice problem when they're using the line tool is they will deselect this with the selection tool, and notice it looks like your line disappeared, but actually it's still there, it just has no stroke on it, so it's like an invisible line. So we can put a stroke of whatever color we want, and now you can see it. So anytime you're worried something disappeared, you can always use your selection tool and draw a box around that empty space, and it'll select anything in that space. So that would be the line tool. It'll give you straight line segments. The arc tool, you click and drag and it will draw you an arc, proportion or not. Once you learn the pen tool, you probably won't use this much. So, but to know it's there and it's available is fun. Spiral tool, yes, this is the spiral tool. I will honestly say it's kind of hard to find tons of uses for it, but I have some cases. If you use the up arrows, it gives you more segments going down internally into that. You can see it getting more. Or if you use the down arrow before letting go of the mouse, you can make it less intricate. I'm going to delete that now. The rectangular grid tool, you can click and drag it out and it'll give you a grid. If you add the up arrow, it'll give you more segments, down arrow less, and right will give you more across the rows, and left will give you less. So it's a good tool if you're making some type of grid. Let me delete that out. Polar grid is great. I use them, hold shift, remember. And while you're drawing it, you can use the arrows as well to get more segments, less segments, or more pieces of the pie, less pieces of the pie. Just know, I use these for color wheel a lot in color theory class, so it's really fun reference. You can fill each segment, so those are really convenient. Delete that. So we've gone through the line tools. Next, I'm going to cover the pen tool. The pen tool is the hardest tool in Illustrator to master, and it takes tons of practice, and it will frustrate you. So I just want to say that up front. Every student I've ever taught for 14 years has said it is very difficult, but once they get it, they love it. Okay? To get straight line segments, you're going to click and let go, 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 and you'll see what's happening is it's feeling strange, you don't know what's happening, and it's very frustrating. The reason that's happening is you're actually making a zigzag line, but if you notice on your toolbar, I'm going to hit escape to end that line, it's on fill, so it's trying to fill a shape that hasn't been finished yet. So I'm just going to swap fill and stroke. This will put that black outline and no fill on there, which makes it a lot more efficient. Okay, if I just wanted a zigzag line, I would be finished, it would be done, and I would be great. If I wanted to complete this into an actual shape, I would have to hover over the last anchor point, which are the clicks that you made when you were drawing it, and you notice my cursor changed to a pen with a little line continuation symbol. So I'm going to click right there and continue to make a basic shape. And if you notice right now, when I hover over the very first anchor to close the shape, it actually has a little circle next to the pen tool that shows that this is actually going to close the shape. Now I can fill the shape and it's accurate. Okay, so that would be an all straight segment tool. I'm going to hit delete because we do not need that. If you want curved shapes, this is where it gets very complicated. So each point you click is an anchor point. So I'm going to hold shift from one anchor point and then click again. That gives me a straight line segment. I'm going to hit escape to end that line, and I'm going to swap the fill so there's a stroke, and then I'm going to continue. But when you click and drag with the pen tool, you click and drag up, and this creates what's known as a handle. It actually is not it's not the line at all. It's a part of the line. It's a part of the anchor that manipulates the line. So I'm going to click again and drag down while holding shift, and this will give me a little curve. Okay, so I'm going to escape and end that line just to show you what actually this looks like. Here's what I drew. I drew a straight line segment, at this anchor point, let me go to my direct selection tool so I can show you details. I'm going to click on that point and notice these are handles, and when you hover over them they should say handles, but they're attached to anchor points. So if you click and move the handle, it affects this line segment that is curved. So you can, the left side of it will be altered by the left handle and the right side of it will be altered by the right handle. Okay? So this is where it gets, you just need to practice, practice, practice and trace things and pictures and whatnot. So there's more tutorials in your book, but I did want to show you how this worked. If you're looking for like curved lines, you would click and drag up, click and drag down, trying to get them even, click and drag up, click and drag down. So you'll notice, then hit escape to end your line. And notice I made a curved line, very few points. The less points you use, the better. The smoother the line will be. But if you ever make a mistake, there's a few things you can do. With the direct selection tool, you can select on one of the anchor points, and let's say we want to move that one to be shorter or the opposite direction or down some. You can move it like that. Let's say we want this curve to be shorter. You can push in the handles, but make sure you're in the direct selection tool and not the selection tool. Anytime if you forget, you can hover over the tool and make sure you are on the right tool. It'll just tell you the name of it. It's wonderful. So this would be a curved line, and you need to practice these so it makes more sense. The next tools in this palette are also helpful. You can add an anchor point. Let's say you need one more to alter the shape and you don't want to redraw the whole thing. That's one option. You can also delete anchor points. Let's say you didn't want that or that and you wanted to make a totally different shape. You can let go and go back in and alter this part of the shape. So that's good. While this is selected, another thing you need to know is there is a convert or an anchor point tool. I've always known of it as a convert anchor tool, and it turns into a little arrow. If you click that, it turns into a point with no handles. If you click it again and drag it out, it makes handles. So it can convert, if you had a straight corner of like a rectangle, you could click and drag on it with that tool and it'll give you handles so you can alter that point into a curve. There are plenty of templates online that you can trace, and this is very, very helpful when learning this tool. So just know if you have any questions about using it, please just ask. So I'm going to delete this. And we're going to go into the brush tool, which you might find to be a little more user-friendly. If you notice, it works like a brush. I am not using a stylus. I am on a laptop. So if you know, it just looks like a line, maybe a paintbrush style. Notice the path. I'm going to zoom in so you can see. Look at how many points that made in comparison to what I did with the pen tool. So this is not as smooth, that is not as precise. But some people find that when you can just write like a pen, that it makes more sense to them. Mainly because the pen tool is hard to learn. But once you've mastered it, you can do anything in Illustrator. So I think it's really, really essential to practice the pen tool. I can't stress that enough. So just know this is the brush tool, and there are several options when using it. But I'm just going to tell you about it today, and then we're going to move on to the pencil tool. The pencil tool I've already dragged off. We're going to click and write curves and shapes, or let's just do a line. You will see that this makes crazy amounts of points, which I told you makes the line look more rough. But they do have something known as a smooth tool, which I will show you. If you click and drag over a part of the line you want to smooth out, it will try to readjust the points so there's less. So it is helpful. I'm old school. I learned on the pen tool. I'm good at the pen tool, so I use the pen tool. So don't get caught in a situation where you don't know how to use the pen tool. So please, I can't stress enough how much to practice. They also have a path eraser tool where you can click over and erase parts of the path. You can also delete segment. So just know that that tool is there. Let me delete this. I'm going to draw just a few shapes just to show you about color. It doesn't matter how many shapes we draw or anything like that. I'm going to select these. And let me bring up our swatches palette. I don't believe I have this in where you can see it, so let me move this in. Swatches is right here. What these are color swatches. You can also get to them under Window, Swatches. Another place is Swatch Libraries, and I'll tell you about this just very quickly. Notice it has defaults, like if you were designing something in art history in the Baroque period or Impressionism, it'll give you some color samples from there. Color books is the most commonly used because anytime you use spot color or custom color, you'll use something from the Pantone palette, so this is where they are found. Let's say we wanted some ice cream palettes. It'll give you some ideas if you were designing a logo for an ice cream shop. This is a good starting point. You will do way more research, but it's kind of fun to see ones that already exist. To fill these shapes, you'll just select them. You do that by clicking on them with the selection tool. You can click this shape, but notice all that did was affect the outline. Because of my tool, I need to bring the fill to the foreground and then select, so then my stroke and my fill are both that ice cream color. I can change that to green. If I want to change the outline, I can click on it and then go back to the swatches palette, or I can actually just click and drag the fill to the stroke and it'll duplicate it, and so now they're both the same. So just know that's one option with the swatches. Let me close this custom palette and open back up the default palette. Anytime you create a custom color, you can double click here. Let's say we want this dark green and we want it this color. Hit OK, and once you have that green selected, you can create a new swatch. You can name it. Right now it has CMYK formula that creates that, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Have you ever seen your printer ink cartridges? They blend all those colors to make most of the colors of the spectrum or any photographs. So this is a printing term that you might or might not have learned about already, but I'm just going to call it dark green because I don't want to have to remember the CMYK. And if I hit OK, notice it added that swatch right there. So now I'm going to click on the next shape, and I'm just going to show you some variations so you don't get too caught up. The gradient is really fun, and a lot of people like to play with it. So when you click gradient, it actually fills your shape with a gradient. You can alter it in several different ways. You can make it darker, lighter. And there's radial, which come from the center out. You can alter how much gray, how much white, and all that good stuff. So this is kind of fun to play around with, and you'll see people that have a lot of fun with it. Right now I'm going to just go back and pick a different color and hit OK. Hopefully you are gathering this. Luckily you can rewatch this video if you're having any trouble keeping up. Hit OK. So right now I have a yucky mustard color with a black outline, but just know that's how you set those colors up. Let's delete these. I'm going to open our layers panel because I want to show you about that. Notice, let me pull this over. There we go. We are on layer 1. I think of layers as a stack of paper on my desk. What's on the bottom layer is on the bottom of my stack of papers. So if I create a new layer, you can name it whatever you're designing on that layer. It'll default in layer 2. So I will show you how this works. So if I'm on layer 1 designing, and let's say I have a big ugly green shape, then I go to layer 2, and let me make a star just so we can use our fun tools. Ooh, wow. That is a lot of ugly. Let me change that color just so I can barely look at it. So hit OK. Notice, because layer 2 is on top of layer 1, and think of this as a stack of papers, you're not going to see what's behind layer 2 unless you change the opacity up here. And then I will show you what would happen. Let me select it, my fault. Has to be selected. If you change anything without an object selected, it will not do, because it doesn't know what you want, which item it wants to add that effect. If you notice when I overlap it, you can see through it like if it was a transparent sheet of paper. If it's a solid color that is, let's say, not see-through at all, it is just stacked on top. So just know whatever's on layer 2 is on top of layer 1. If you want to hide it, you just click on the eye. If you want to show it, if you want to lock this layer so nobody can touch it, you can do that. Notice now when I click on the white, nothing happens. It automatically defaults to layer 1 because layer 2 is locked. This will come in handy, so just remember these options. To unlock, just click it again. So these are all wonderful things that you need to know. So these are just starter. So I want you to keep practicing for your assignment this week. I'm going to show you how to save. There's a few options. Right now we want to show you save. This is an Illustrator native file. It'll always have the extension .a1. Sorry, AI. It's been a long day. Notice there's several other options. I would say that you'll use the AI native file, PDF, and EPS the most. We will go the other options later. But I do want you to know that if I ask for a native Illustrator file, just know that this is what that means, or a PDF file is more universally seen, so almost anyone can open it. So right now we're going to hit save. It brings up a dialog box. It asks what version I want to save in. Because I am working in Creative Cloud, I'm going to save it under this version. But I have seen students, let's say they're at school working in Creative Cloud, but they only have the last version at home, like CS6. Then you'd want to back save or down save back to CS6 so you could work on it at home. Otherwise, it won't open it and you'll have file problems. So just know that is an option to save back to a previous version. Sometimes you'll be taking a job to the printer and they'll be on CS3, and just know that's an option. Here we go, sorry. I had to pause for a second. If you create a PDF compatible file, it does make the file larger, so just know it is an option to deselect that and make the file a little smaller. So for now, we'll just hit OK. We saved it. Notice there's no star next to the file name. That means the file has been saved. I also want to show you how to export, because this is very commonly used. Notice all the file types. JPEG turns it into an image file. PNG is also an image file that is commonly used. TIFF is commonly used, but I would say I use JPEGs more than anything because they're a universal file type. But it does change it into an image file. You can't go back in when you export that. You always want to save your original native file plus an image file. So if I were to export this, I would make sure I saved it original. It'll ask you how you want to save it. I'm going to leave it in CMYK. It'll ask you the quality, because if you want it for a web, just for like screen, it can be smaller file size. If you want it for print, it needs to be larger. Resolution, I'm just leaving it as screen because I don't need to worry about it. Usually for emailing something to me or to a client later on, you just hit OK. So it'll save that it'll export a copy as a JPEG. So let me know if you have any more questions. These are just the starting tools. I hope this helps. Let me know. Bye.